Okay, great. All right. I'm here with Geoff Goodman, and I appreciate his time today to join us.
My
Uh,
pleasure. Good to be here.
Thank you. Geoff, please tell me about your journey from starting in the industry to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, I started in the industry about 26 years ago with my very first franchise organization, which is called Brewster's Ice Cream, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and came on board as a 27-year-old VP of operations and was a part of growing that brand pretty aggressively from 20, 25 units up to about 255 or so when I left. And in any small franchise or you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of different things, whether it's training or operations or supply chain, R&D, you do all the things. And it was a great learning environment. And I learned early on that it was great to surround yourself not only with challenges that helped you grow as a professional, but also it was a great opportunity to surround myself with a bunch of very seasoned professionals that helped me learn the franchising space and learn the franchising business. And it was a great way to cut my teeth in a franchising career. I've been with a few other brands throughout my career. I spent about 7 years with a company called CC's Pizza down in Dallas, Texas. At the peak, about 650 locations across the country. Went through a number of years of struggle, but got helped to get that brand with a great leadership team back on a positive trajectory. And I'm excited to see that brand thriving today under really strong leadership. Um, and it had a couple other stops in my franchising journey as a president slash CEO of a couple of different franchise concepts. One's a turnaround situation, one was a growth opportunity. But for the past 3 years, as sort of a culmination of my career, we've been working. I founded a company called Remarkable Brands Group, and what we specialize in is partnering with early stage franchisors that meet a number of different criteria points to partner with the founders to help surround them with both the people and the process that they need in order to help scale their businesses and ultimately create a great valuation for their organization. So we engage with very entrepreneurial, but also what I would describe as very humble founders, people who have developed a great business, but know they need support and they need help to take that business to the next level. And we come in and we complement them with a number of different service offerings in order to help them scale up and achieve the full market potential of whatever business that they've created. So I love working with entrepreneurs. I love working with these early stage brands. Different people enjoy different parts of the franchising space. Sometimes at large, mature brands, and there's unique challenges to that. Personally, I love the early stage. I love helping people take a great idea and apply great processes to that idea to help it achieve what it can achieve, and then doing it right along the way. So yeah, so that's a little bit of what my journey's been. It's been really enjoyable, and I love what we do today, and I'm very proud of some of the brands that we've been working with.
That sounds like a lot of fun. It is
It
satisfying, isn't it,
is.
to help people progress and achieve their goals and
It is.
replace stress with success.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really fun to be able to come and take to work with a founder who's reached the point where they say, "Gosh, I've taken it to this level, and
Hmm.
I'm overwhelmed and don't know where to start to take it to the next level."
Hmm.
And I appreciate that. I've sort of been there. I've started a couple different franchise organizations, and it's hard. It's really hard work in any business to take it from infancy to maturity. And then
Hmm.
along the way, the skill sets needed, the people that are needed, the processes that are needed completely change and morph over the course of, this different stages of development from an early stage to an emerging to a growth brand and a growth brand to a mature concept. The needs of those businesses change very rapidly, and it's very satisfying to take somebody who perhaps is overwhelmed with the transition that they're going through as an organization,
Hmm.
and again to help them pull back, to help them look strategically at their organization, to help apply some good short-term and longer-term goals and objectives, and then vigorously apply strategy to those and help them tactically execute on the business. And then you watch them say, thank goodness. Like, we have a plan. I know where I'm going now, and I know where I'm
Hmm.
starting, and I know what I'm going to do next. And we have a strategy, and let's go knock it out of the park. And it's great to see people, relax in their space, reach their full potential, find them
Hmm.
the right seat on the bus as a founder for themselves, where they can maximize their unique skill set. And then surround them with people who have different skill sets that can complement them. And that's been really satisfying. And you see the smiles on people's faces when they start to realize that, the next level for the business is possible, and they're on the pathway to help achieve that.
That's right. And in the change in their personal life, their family life, relationship with family members, that's got to be revolutionary too.
Oh, I've seen so many instances where people just have had family lives that are strained because they're working 24/7 in the business,
Hmm.
mainly because they're simply firefighting. And when you're in firefighting
Hmm.
mode in an emerging business, you work all day long, but really don't accomplish much of anything. And
Right.
then you go home, you sleep, and say, I got to get right back at it because there's a whole checklist of things I never got to yesterday, which a lot of times are the wrong things to be focused on. There's things
Hmm.
that you can let burn for a while while you focus on the main things. And it is nice to be able to see the change in some of the founders who have gone from being overwhelmed, which obviously affects all of our personal lives when you're in a situation where you're overwhelmed, to knowing that they've got a backup, knowing that they've got people surrounding them that care about them and are values aligned
Hmm.
with what they're trying to achieve in their business, and then can help them execute. So they put their head in the pillow a little bit easier at night, which then obviously impacts their personal lives. And hopefully the bottom line too, right? So that's ultimately what we want to get
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
been
I
fun.
had I had a client that was was working 80 hours a week, and we got some things built in his business, and now he only works 20. And he's a single father for three young boys. And
Yep,
when you're working 80 hours a week, you're just not any good to anybody else. I don't care who you are. And but now he can be a part of their lives, and I know that's what you do with your clients, and
it is.
that's
It
more
is.
important than
Yeah.
the money, actually.
Honestly, it really is. And that's part of the value proposition that we offer to
Hmm.
to founders, which is say, listen, we're going to put time back in your day because we're
Hmm.
going to take this action, this action, this action, this process off of your plate. We'll tell you all about it. We'll involve you in any key decisions. We're not going to make decisions for you. We're not trying to usurp your authority. What we're trying to do is put you in a position where you can make decisions on the things that are important, but we're going to handle the processes and the procedures and the action steps that need to happen to execute on a brand strategy. And that's where a lot of people see the benefit, right? Which is, all of a sudden
Hmm.
I've got time back in my day to either think, which is the first thing that goes when you're working 80, 90
That's
hours a
right.
week. You lose perspective, and you lose the ability to stay strategic and really think through
Hmm.
the proper decision-making process about your business. That's number one. And number two, you have a little more family time. Go home and have dinner with your kids and take them to school and all that kind of stuff. And let us pick up the slack for some of those process points that you just don't need to be working on right now.
That's right. Let the visionary be the visionary, and get somebody in there who can help the trains run on time.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. So what challenges do you foresee in the industry, and what what do you think the right steps to prepare for them?
You know, I It's going to be, if you had asked me that question a couple of months ago before the election, I may have given one answer, and now it may be a different answer. I don't know. I mean, who knows what the future is going to hold here? But I certainly think that for franchising, um, um, that 2025 is really bound to be a pretty good year. What we've seen, even in the first week after the election, is that there's been a number of prospective or potential franchisees or franchisor owners who have been sort of holding off making decisions of what they want their next steps to be, to wait to see what the results of the election were going to be and what have you. And things are starting to loosen up a little bit. So it looks like
Hmm.
2025, maybe, if at least in our world and what the brands that we work with, could be a very positive year. So we're excited about that. Some of the challenges, I think, longer term, more strategically, that I see is that within franchising, there's a lot of private equity. There's a lot of venture capital money that's come into brands. And one of the things that we've seen in my group and that I've run across is the number of, understandably so, but the number of PE groups have really demanded more rapid growth from their
Hmm.
franchisors that they've invested in. And that's great. They have businesses to run and they want to return on their capital invested, and that all makes perfect sense. But the flip side of that in franchising is that some of the balance of investment versus return, and
Mhm.
then reasonable, responsible franchising growth gets lost in that push-pull relationship of
Mhm.
return on money and investment in people and their own success. So at the core of our business at Remarkable, and this sort of our antidote to that, is that in our business, the number one metric that we have in all the companies that we work to support is the percentage of people in the system who are franchisees who are highly satisfied and profitable in their investment. That is our number one metric. So said a little bit differently, what concerns me a little bit is when so much money is at play with so much demand on return, you lose the
Mhm.
human side of franchising.
Mhm.
And I was part of an organization one time where, and it's just a quick anecdote, where, when I left, somebody asked me the question of, hey, you've been with the company for a few years, is there anything that you can tell me on the way out the door that I should know about, as the CEO, and you want to pass along and as a word of advice? I said, yes. At some point, the company stopped referring to franchisees by name and they started referring to them by number. They started
Mhm.
calling them store 123, store 456, instead of saying John, Mary, Sally, Bob, whatever the person's name was. And that to me is a fundamental flaw in franchising, is when we stop referring to locations and stop referring to the franchisees by name, and you take that human side of the impact of corporate decisions away from the decision-making process and start looking at broader decisions about how corporate can grow their business versus pouring back
Mhm.
into and keeping the franchisee centric to all your decision-making process of how to drive franchisee satisfaction and profitability. To me, that's the core of everything in this business. And that's one of my concerns, which is with so much money coming in, so many investments being made, that the pressure to grow outweighs the pressure to ensure highly satisfied and profitable franchisees along the way. So we take a more long-term vision, a
Mhm.
long-term view with our client relationships and the brands that we partner with, to say, hey, let's work first on infrastructure before growth, right? Let's work first to
Mhm.
make sure that we're setting our early stage franchisees up for the greatest success they can possibly have, so we can create validators on the concept, that we can drive those highly satisfied, profitable franchisees to be evangelists about the brand, and then ultimately create that flywheel effect for growth, where we see most growth coming from internal candidates, and we will grow. So
Mhm.
that's our concern, but that's our antidote to that concern, which is to stay focused on the business model and to stay focused on whatever we can do to help, support and ensure the highly satisfied, profitable franchisee is always at the forefront of our mind.
I love it. I love it. There's a expression in the military, uh, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So
Yeah.
I agree. If let's grow. We want to grow. We want more customers, but we have to ensure consistent quality service and satisfied employees and everything along the way, or ultimately the business model will crater.
It's interesting. We're all big fans of Chick-fil-A, and they're a model of
Hmm.
excellence in this space. And I remember a quote one time from Chewett Cathy where he was being pushed to grow, 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 and his response was to push back on his executive team, put his hands on the table, and stand up and say, "You've got it all wrong. It's not about growth. It's about, if we focus on getting better, our customers will demand that we get bigger, and bigger will take care of itself."
I
And
love it.
that's been sort of the approach that we've taken with our concepts. It's not so much about how do we go sell, sell, sell more deals. It's about how do we get better? How do we have better support systems? How do we squeeze more profitability at the franchisee level out of our units? Because if we're able to achieve that, we're going to grow.
Hmm.
Because really at the core of franchising, it comes down to one thing. It's when a prospect calls up an existing franchisee and asks one magic question. And that question is really simple. When a prospect calls up, they ask the question of saying, hey, knowing what you know today, would you
Hmm.
build another? And if the answer to that question is yes, we grow. And if the answer to that question is no, then we don't. So we want to make sure that the answer to that question is yes. So, simple philosophy. But truthfully, it takes a little discipline to execute because sometimes the pressure to grow, the pressure to drive valuations is extreme. And
Hmm.
to some degree, you have to resist that urge simply to default to selling franchises versus awarding.
I love it. That's right. I worked for a gentleman who owned a bunch of Burger Kings, and I saw what I think was the franchise model being done the wrong way. The, the franchisor got paid on revenue, so they had all sorts of buy
Sure.
one, get free, 10 chicken nuggets for $1,
Yep.
so the franchisor got more money in the short run, but then after they sold, they pumped up the stock price and sold, and then hundreds and hundreds of Burger Kings closed because they weren't making
Mhm.
any money. So,
That's right.
just
That's right.
short-term orientation and left devastation in their wake. It was terrible.
Yep. Yeah. And look, we have a phrase that we use all the time is that there's one common objective between the franchisor and the franchisees. And it's not to make money. That's the common output of our
I
ability to
love it.
achieve our objective. The common objective between the franchisor and the franchisee is to work together to get and keep more guests who come in more often, spending more of their money while maintaining appropriate margins. And if we can achieve that, then we all succeed.
Hmm.
But that's when we keep that line in front of us that we have to work together with our franchisees to get and keep more guests coming in more often while maintaining appropriate margins. Then that is what keeps us aligned with the right way to grow a business where it doesn't get off kilter, Perry, as you're describing, where the franchisor is making decisions that simply drive royalty, or the franchisee is making decisions that don't help top line sales, by which the franchisor makes money, but they're helping themselves because they're making a margin play, right?
That's right.
So either party can make decisions that work against each other, but that's why you have to keep that joint objective um, really clear between both parties. So we use that line a lot with our franchise partners.
I love it. It sounds like the next step is to go one step to the left, and and have franchisors be a little more discerning about what investors they take on. So they take on investors that have a similar vision and a more longer term view, not just quarter to quarter profits.
That's exactly right. I think that's, it's interesting you say that because we just counseled a franchise system who was looking to potentially get acquired, or at least to sell a portion of their business. And
Hmm.
the group that was looking to take them over was very, very, very growth driven. And that was one of the individual's concerns that they raised, which is saying they just want to sell deals. I'm like, right. And if you're aligned with that, that's one way to go. But if you're
Hmm.
not values aligned to that, if you care about the true success of your franchisees and you're willing to be patient because you want to do it right, you may want to reconsider. And ultimately, they did, and it came on board with us, and now we're taking a little bit longer growth. Well, we're
Hmm.
taking a little bit longer. We have a little bit longer roadmap on our strategic plan.
Hmm.
However, the basis for that to seed that growth is much stronger. So not about selling deals, it's about how many quality franchisees we can award licenses to. So yeah,
Absolutely.
the investors you take on, I think it's super important to be values aligned with what the short and longer term objectives are.
Hmm. Absolutely. Hey, you were talking about Burger or Chick-fil-A earlier. I remember
Yeah,
years ago, Chick-fil-A's average unit revenue was 3 million, and then it was 5, 6, 8, 9. I don't know what they're probably in excess of 9 million
yeah,
per
there's 7 or
unit. I
8 right
mean,
now, something like that. It's incredible.
yeah, and that's an example of exactly what you're talking about. Processes, quality service, reasonably quality food for the price point, and
Yep.
just they're the service that brings up another point. The service they deliver and the friendliness of the crew is something you would think could be easily replicated, but not enough people in the space do it.
Yeah, and that comes down to me, that comes down to one word, which is culture.
Absolutely.
And, culture is defined as the set of shared attitudes, beliefs, and practices that make up an organization or a group. And, they have an amazing culture within that organization. And it's a culture of excellence.
Hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, their mission statement, the name of our company is Remarkable Brands, and their mission statement is to be remarkable, which is to be noticeably or conspicuously different, to be worthy of notice or attention. And they live up to that. I mean, They do the basics extraordinarily well. They create amazing moments. Whether it's in a drive-through line or when you go up to refill a drink, they create little moments that are wow moments with the customer. And then when you operate as they do, and again, taking great lessons and plagiarizing good lessons from really
Right.
high quality organizations, which I'm very comfortable doing, they work with that zero defect mentality. So it's very, very rare that they make mistakes. And when you focus on that kind of that level of operational excellence, that working with a zero defect mentality, your opportunity to piss off guests and
Hmm.
put their loyalty at risk goes down dramatically. So, and then, again, it comes on the culture. When you have consistent culture and consistent execution based upon that culture, it leads to a generation of trust with a brand. And certainly the trust with Chick-fil-A is extraordinary, which even when Chick-fil-A makes a mistake, you have a confidence they're going to do what it takes to make it right.
That's right. They have so
And
much
that's
goodwill
and
in the
that's
bank.
rare.
Yeah.
That's rare. Very few guests at Chick-fil-A expect zero defect. What they
Hmm.
do expect, and they have confidence in because they've built it up over years, is they're going to take care of you if there is a problem. So,
Yeah.
and again, that's just as a baseline philosophy. I think that's a big thing that we try to impart into our concepts, which is, hey, let's operate with that same type of mentality, that zero defect pursuit, but also that culture of accountability that we talk about in our concepts, where we're all accountable to each other. We're franchisors accountable to the franchisee is accountable to the franchisor, but we're all ultimately accountable to the guest. And we have to keep that at the forefront of what we think about.
Excellent. Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So why would we not plagiarize from some of the best in the business? I mean, and maybe
Sure.
in some ways improve on what they do or tailor
It's
it
the highest
to,
form. It's the
yeah,
highest form of flattery, right? So, I
right.
mean,
Absolutely.
I've got no problem taking great ideas from great companies. So, that's all good. I'll give them
Yeah,
credit too. It's all fine.
yeah,
I'm not
that's
trying
right.
to pass it off of my own ideas. That's all fine.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you just from talking to you, you're able to take some of these ideas and tailor them to the unique culture of your client or improve on them. And
We certainly work
excellent.
towards that. I mean, it takes a while to ultimately shift the culture if you're working with a new
Hmm.
organization, right? But we start with some basic principles. We try to get those across. We talk about them pretty consistently and don't change course. I think they're the right basic principles, especially in the franchising space, to adopt. I say that humbly. They seem to work. It
Hmm.
creates, if your ultimate goal is to have highly satisfied and profitable franchisees, some of the basics of communication, the basics of accountability, the basis of building culture. I mean, all of those things, they're like we always say, it's not rocket science, right? Let's focus on the
Right.
basics. Let's focus up on building a great nucleus of support and make sure everybody's values align with the business. And things have its funny way of working out after that when you do that. But it's
That's
hard. It's
right.
hard work and it takes a lot of consistency. And I think it takes a lot of discipline with some of our franchise brands to not chase the dollar just because it's
Hmm.
right there in front of you, right? That's hard. It's hard to be disciplined, not to just chase the check. But at the same time, in those sort of in moments of inflection where you've got tough decisions. Hopefully, we've pushed enough culture, we've pushed enough value systems
Hmm.
that people make the right decision on behalf of the brand.
That's
So
right. Vern Harnish talks about who wrote the book Scaling Up, talks about exactly that, defining your values and beliefs and your mission and vision. And then when decisions are made at all levels of the organization, people use that as a filter, as a screen to make the
yeah,
decision. And then actually, when you even the line level employees are acculturated that way, they make
mhm.
more. There are fewer decisions management all the way up the chain have to make because you can trust that everybody in the company is operating from the same perspective.
Exactly. And I think that's what we push towards. Again, it's very aspirational, right? It's
Right.
hard. You don't just say it and then it happens throughout all levels of the organization. You really got to work on it every single day and live that belief. Um,
Right.
but it does show up. We had a situation the other day with one of our brands who was looking at a franchise candidate who was looking to make an investment. They were financially qualified, they were in a good geography, they wanted to do multi-unit. but we got to know the person a little bit more and said, we just don't think this person's values align with what we're trying to achieve. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to pass. And that's hard for an early stage
Mm-hmm.
franchisor to pass up a check in the, you know, close to that $100,000 range.
Right.
That's a big check for an emerging brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was proud of the person for making that decision ultimately. Um, and look, we help. That's part of what we do. And part of the way we get compensated in our organization is by doing deals. So for us,
Mm-hmm.
not doing that deal that would have been in excess of $100,000, that's a that's a financial hit to us if we had,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have we partner with these brands more from an equity standpoint. So we're comfortable passing up the short-term check because
Mm-hmm.
we know that by passing up on that franchise sale, it probably creates more value in the long term by not having that individual in the
That's
system.
right. That's
So
right.
we try to help our brands. We try to act in the same way that we're asking our brands to act, which is to act strategically and act with the long-term valuation in mind. So
Absolutely.
just as an example.
Yeah, excellent. Because otherwise, you'd be regretting that decision every day, and then the other franchisees would would be looking at you saying, "Well, you say your culture's this, but it's
But
not
then
what
you
I'm
brought this
seeing."
person in.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So
That's
you
right.
just degrade everything you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. You can't just say it, you got to do it.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
and again, nobody's perfect. We can't say we do it perfectly every single time, but you know, um, we certainly try. And I think that's
Excellent.
all you can ask for our brands to do.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. And I agree with you. Culture is the number one. Everything else is, important in running a business, but culture is the number one differentiator. It's something that that it's a unique selling
It, it-
proposition.
it's it's
Nobody can
it's
replicate it.
that's right. It's the unique differentiator between
Hmm.
concepts. I mean, especially look, whether it's a restaurant or a service brand, honestly, as you said before, everybody's done it.
Right.
There's different versions of the same mousetrap, right? But the difference is the culture with which that idea or that concept or that service is executed. And I think that is the unique value. Again, back to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is not differentiated because they have the world's greatest chicken sandwich. Now, it's pretty dang good, right? It's
Yeah, it's
good. We all
decent.
like
Yeah, it's
it. It's
good.
good. It's right, but it's not the cheapest, right?
No,
That's
it's
for
not.
sure. It's not the cheapest. But what they've done masterfully well is to execute on a culture that makes people want to keep coming back, where there's value beyond the food for being a patron of Chick-fil-A. And I think if you can master that within your brand and create something that higher order purpose of your concept is beyond your product or simply
Hmm.
beyond your service, that you make somebody feel better by having done business with you, that's where some magic can happen with the growth of certain concepts, right?
Absolutely.
And that's, we try to look for brands where there's an opportunity at least to create a higher order purpose, or there's a different why to that brand than they
Hmm.
just have a make a better widget.
Hmm.
So I think it's a very much a part of that unique selling proposition.
Yeah, I love it. Excellent. So, what lessons would you share with others in the industry?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think it goes
A big
back to a little
question.
bit of what yeah, it's a big question. I think for me, as hard it is to do, I just think for anybody who's in the franchising space is this is a human business first.
Hmm.
And somebody, a mentor once told me one time that, his line was always that the purpose of business is talk about the purpose of his business, and that the purpose of business is to make a difference and not simply make dollars, and that the businesses that focus on making a difference make dollars. And I've always lived by that. And I've always, ever since we got engaged with them, like I just believe that to my core. So every business that we work with, we say, hey, what difference are you making in the lives of your guests, in the lives of your franchisees, in the lives of your employees? And if you can articulate that, then we can find a way to monetize that relationship in order to grow this company, because typically that means culture is being built and what have you. And I think a
Hmm.
big part of that lesson is that keep the human side at the forefront. Don't let your locations be called by numbers. Make sure you know
Hmm.
the names. Make sure you know your franchise partners' kids' names. What are they trying to achieve in their personal life? And I can't tell you the number of times that I've gone to meet with a franchisee where they've been struggling or they're dissatisfied with the kind of money they're making from the business. And more often than not, it's not that they're dissatisfied with the amount of money they're making because they're making money. They're dissatisfied because there's something else in their life that's popped up that's causing financial pressure, and therefore they're kind of blaming it on the business not being able to produce enough to cover that financial pain. Maybe it's a kid going off to college. It could have been mom had a medical issue. It could be any number of different things,
Hmm.
right? Their car crapped out and they need a new car and they don't have the cash for it. So then when you work with those franchisees by keeping the human side first, let's find out their why, what they need. And let's say, all right, what if we did X, Y, or Z with your business to help drive a little profitability to help that personal side
Hmm.
get more comfortable. Therefore, you can get back to 100% focused on your company, right? So yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me is always keep the human side of franchising first and foremost. Keep it a people-focused business, and stay focused on that purpose of business being to make a difference and not simply make dollars.
Excellent. You've articulated very well some ideas I've had, and but you've been able to
Thank you.
summarize them much better than I would.
Oh, I don't
Excellent.
know about that, but I'm sure you would have done just fine. But yeah, thank you.
Well, that is there anything else you'd want to add to that you think would be helpful to the audience?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of, Perry, is for anybody who's new in the franchising space or who's starting a career or even a mature person, the franchising world is an incredibly small community. It's a huge
Hmm.
industry, but a small community. And it's a community, at least in my 25 plus years of being in the space, it's a community of people who are very willing to help each other because we've all had similar experiences. So if you are a franchisor, if you are a franchisee, even though asking for help is hard, that's a hard human nature thing to do, do it. Because you're going to find yourself surrounded with a community of people in the franchising space that very much and very sincerely would love to reach out and help you. And there's no shame in that. So
Absolutely.
that's what I
Always
leave
got
people
to.
with. Call me. I'll make some introductions for you. I'll talk to you. No problem. So that's if you're not passionate about that, then find another industry.
Yeah,
So
that's right. That's right.
yeah,
Excellent. Well, hey, I sure appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and
my
wrap up the
pleasure.
podcast part of this.